Hello out there. Welcome to our podcast today, The Brand and the Source. This is Coach Eric Johnson, known as Coach EJ, The Brand.
And this is Coach Aaron the Source, known as Coach Aaron the Source.
Love it, man. Love it. Man, what's our topic today, Aaron? Talk to me, man.
I just saw this article online from The Hill, and it's entitled Manchin and Tuberville Unveil Bill Making Sweeping Changes to College Sports. And apparently, these guys have a piece of legislation called the Protecting Athletes, Schools, and Sports Act. Okay. And I'll just kind of read you a little excerpt here from the article. But basically, it will require that collectives and boosters be affiliated with the college or school, prohibit inducements, and give the NCAA authority to prohibit certain NIL agreements, including those that would involve alcohol, drugs, or conflict with existing school and conference licenses. So, this is an opinion show.
It sure is.
And, this is the first article I've seen on this, and maybe I should read a few more, but just on face value, we'll talk about it. Okay. Be honest with you, you know me, I'm a cynic. I'm not a fan of the NCAA. I think this is just their way of, it's a power grab. They're trying to reassert the power that they lost through the last legislation that gave athletes the NIL. Okay. And well, I'll dissect a couple of points here in a minute, but that's what I think. Now, has the advent of NIL, gone a little Wild West? I think it did initially, but I think it started to settle down. I don't think it affects the number of athletes that everyone thought it was going to affect. Not every athlete is going to be able to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. Okay.
Right.
But I think, and again, if we talk a little politics, I'm not a fan of Manchin or Tuberville. Okay. I follow politics and not a fan of some of their antics. And I just think this is a way to, again, re-empower the NCAA. And I'd like to know who whispered in their ears that they felt this needed to be done. And again, I'll pull out a couple of excerpts that make me kind of feel that way. Because at first when I saw this, I was like, oh man, great. Okay, there's going to be some order. There could be some guidelines, you know, but from what they're proposing, I don't actually feel that way. And I've read this article a couple times now, just to make sure I was reading what I was reading.
Right.
But EJ, before we get into that, what are some of your initial thoughts?
Not a fan of the NCAA, as you know, because it's the have versus the have-nots. You talk about, the portal, transfer portal, you talk about NILs, and you talk about all kinds of stuff. Now they want to regulate it.
Right.
But now we're regulating it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so who are you regulating? Are you regulating everybody, or are you regulating certain Power 5 conferences? What are we doing here? Because that's what you're doing. I mean, it's all about TV, money, and rights.
Right.
It's about money. This is what this is about. And we can't give these athletes money. Well, excuse me. You did. You opened up the can of worms. And anytime, Congress, what's Congress doing with amateur sports anyway? It's not a business, but it is. So basically what it's saying to me, Aaron, at this point is that they're trying to put a Band-Aid or a bigger tourniquet on a problem that is really going on beyond that. And that is, why did you change the rules when COVID happened? It starts there with me, and it's all about money. And NCAA and the Congress are all in it together. And I'm sorry, but why are you just regulating the bigger conferences? Well, everybody doesn't get money. What about the San Jose states out there?
Right.
They don't get any NIL money. I mean, I don't see guys like, hey, I want to go to San Jose State, but everybody's going, I want to go to LSU.
Right.
So, hey, Aaron, that's my opinion so far. But as we get into this podcast, we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of go through some of the excerpts, and then we can kind of talk about them, maybe point by point. But basically, you're saying the NCAA would also have the oversight over NIL activities and the authority to investigate them. Okay. I kind of have a problem with that because the NCAA is still too cozy with some of the bigger franchise organizations, or colleges.
Franchise.
So, to have them oversee this process, I don't think is quite right because of the influence that the SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, some of these bigger conferences can have. And the reason why I say this is all of that, there's a marriage, kind of sister wife thing going on with all of them in terms of the corporations, the
Right.
NCAA, and the schools. So now, Pepsi, say, is a big sponsor of a lot of colleges, whatever you call it. And all of a sudden, you get the number one running back in the country who wants to sign an NIL deal with, I don't know,
Mountain Dew,
some other kind of sports drink. Yeah, I mean, what if it's just some kind of small sports drink? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, small one, Powerade.
Yeah,
or something like
or someone who's not even on. They in essence, if the NCAA has to ratify that, they can clip the kibosh on that.
Right.
So now you have an atmosphere where these big corporations can kind of create a monopoly, which they already had before, but don't have now because they can lose athletes to any vendor. They can lose them to Uncle Bob's soda jerk, company. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So I don't really like that dynamic because of the influence that these corporations can have on the NCAA or on these institutions, because their marquee athletes are going with maybe some small startup.
Right. I understand that.
So that to me is what seems kind of sinister about this. Whose interests are they really protecting? Because the NCAA, oh, we're doing this for the good of the athlete. But in the end, kind of tell me a little bit more how you're going to do that. I think the better way to do this is to have a third-party entity, a commission, that will make these decisions, establish these guidelines. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
And handle this. But it should not be in the hands of the NCAA.
Absolutely.
Somebody who's a little bit further removed and can be more impartial. And you can make that commission up of current athletes, former athletes, coaches, current coaches, former coaches, corporate sponsors, boosters, administrators. Get them all at the table. But none that have any affiliations with any corporations or current affiliations with any corporations or schools. So now you can have an impartial body that has all of those entities involved, and everyone can speak to the issues for each different entity, and they can come to some reasonable rules and regulations and ways to proceed.
Boy, is that kind of like a if we had a third party involved here, Aaron, is that like Major League Baseball and a luxury tax? If you make so much money, then you get fined and then you get in trouble. So where does that money go? Why don't we say, if we're talking about NIL money, why don't we talk about, okay, you get fined and the money gets put into this pot and it gets distributed evenly to all NCAA athletes? Hello, there it is right there. This is all about TV rights, sponsorships, and who has, how much stock do you have in that sponsorship to get this on TV in this conference? You're right, Aaron. I agree with you. There needs to be a third party in here, and we need to distribute the money to those institutions that need help. But hey, have versus the have-nots. I like your solution right there. I think third party, hello, let's get it started.
Yeah. Another thing this piece of legislation would do, it'd make changes to the transfer portal, requiring athletes to complete their first 3 years of academic eligibility before being allowed to transfer without penalty, with a few exceptions, to another institution. Now, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but I don't know, isn't that kind of what we had before?
I'm going to tell you this, and what they had before was fine, because now you had everybody in check. You had the coaches in check about recruiting illegally. I'm sorry, they did. That if you want to transfer to another school, you got to sit out a year. Simple as that, and then you can't like have these powerhouse schools like ruling everything. And then what happens to the mid majors? What happens to those D3 programs? The whole environment, and if I say college baseball, is all messed up from top to bottom because of you can just transfer anytime you want to, and it doesn't matter anymore. Now we got the wild, wild west out there at every level, and there's no rules or regulations. Get back to the old model. I'm sorry. You're trying to transfer. You need a coach's release. You got to be compliant, and you need to sit out a year. It's simple. It will stop all this stuff right away. And it'll stop all this recruiting. It will stop guys from jumping to a transfer portal. Hey, they're jumping. You got grad students playing baseball for a 5th and 6th year.
Oh, yeah.
What is going on here? Put in. You transfer, you sit out a year. I guarantee those players aren't playing anymore. I'm just going to go to grad school. I'm done playing. This is going to stop this issue they're having right now. But the route that they're on right now, it is the wild, wild west. And they're shooting.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think there needs to be something done that brings some stability,
right?
And some, I guess, reliability or probability to the track that these athletes are on, so that the athletes kind of know what's expected of them. The schools kind of can plan better because they know now, hey, what's on limits, what's off limits. Versus this kind of free agent, year-to-year free agency,
That's what it is, Aaron. It really is that.
And I don't think kids or college athletes really need to have that sort of latitude, because I see some wise choices, but I see a lot more unwise, emotionally based choices.
Aaron, I have a question for you. Are we taking the amateur out?
Your sound went out, EJ.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, you there?
No.
Oh. I'm out right now. You can't hear me.
Can't hear you.
Huh. That's interesting.
Nothing? You're killing me.
No, I'm good.
There you are. Okay.
There we go.
Now I can hear you.
Aaron, are we taking the amateur out of collegiate sports?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Are we taking the amateurism out of collegiate sports?
It's fine with me.
Right?
Because let's call it what it is. Let's call a thing a thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, what it's amateurs for the athletes participating, but it's a professional business for the colleges and the corporations who are making all the money.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. This is the whole point, is that it's big business and people need to understand that. And no way, my opinion, no way we should have an entity telling them what to do. That's not due process, and it's not
Right.
enterprising in business. It's a business.
Right.
They're making money.
Exactly. And, they kind of talk about, well, we want the schools to, we want to make sure that, these kids aren't signing NIL deals with, alcohol and tobacco and all that stuff. You know what? That's fine. But the NCAA shouldn't regulate that. That should be between the athlete and the institution. So if USC says, hey, look, we're not signing athletes or any athlete who gives us, we're going to give a scholarship to, we don't want them to be involved with these sort of entities on their NIL contracts. Athlete knows that up front, says, hey, I can rock with that. I'm signing with USC. Athletes that think, oh, you know what? Well, hey, I might want to get a deal with Ciroc Vodka or somebody. Then they don't go to USC. It's that simple.
Right.
You don't need another entity saying, well, these industries are okay and these industries aren't okay. Schools already set guidelines of conduct and all those other sorts of things. So why not be upfront about, hey, look, these are the types of businesses we want our athletes to be associated with. And an athlete can say, hey, look, you know what? That doesn't align with my values. I want to be able to run an NIL for Hooker T's strip club. Okay. Then I guess you're not going to Holy Names or Notre Dame.
There.
That's fine. So I don't think we need the NCAA to do that. We don't need another middleman. That can be something decided in the marketplace. And if USC finds that they're not getting marquee blue chip athletes because they have a no alcohol tolerance, NIL policy, then they can decide,
right?
Hey, you know what? Maybe we need to switch that. Maybe we need to change that. So I don't think the NCAA needs to be involved in that.
No, they're a monopoly.
Yeah.
If they are,
yeah.
They're straight monopoly. It's simple.
Well, like I said, now you give them the control to say who's acceptable and who isn't.
Right. Makes no sense.
And so in essence, you're still now taking away the earning power from the athlete. Is the mom and pop liquor store that the kid, grew up on at the corner, most of his life, wants to sponsor this kid, now isn't going to be good enough when this kid may want to give back to them and they want to give back to this kid.
Right.
And yeah, we're not probably talking hundreds and thousands of dollars, but maybe they got a deal where they pay the kid $5,000 or something, a couple grand, right. 5 books, whatever it is. I'm just saying, I don't think they need to have a say in that. Let's go on to some more of this article.
Right.
Now there are some good in this, but that yet remains to be seen because this is just a proposal. And again, the cynic in me says, this is probably something that's going to be negotiated out.
Absolutely. We know that.
So listen to this. The legislation would require four-year schools and colleges to offer health insurance. Sounds pretty good. To athletes who are uninsured for 8 years after they graduate. Sounds great. Institutions whose athletic departments generate a certain revenue threshold would be required to pay out-of-pocket expenses. if the institution makes more than 20 million in athletics revenue, it be required to pay expenses for 2 years. If it makes more than 50 million, it would be required to pay for 4 years. Sounds great to me on its, face value, but do you really think the institutions are going to go for that?
No.
That's a lot of insurance on a lot of athletes.
No.
And now, what is the criteria for that? See, you got to get into the weeds a little bit more. Is it an athlete that played for you for 1 year? Is it an athlete that played for you for 2 years? And do you understand what I'm saying? Is an athlete who's on full scholarship, half scholarship, partial scholarship? Is an athlete who's just on the roster?
Layers.
So, I think that will get thrown out.
Yeah, it is.
They're not going to be able to come to any kind of
agreement.
I really don't think. I think they're throwing that in to make this look good, but they probably realize this is going to get axed.
It's going to get axed
in negotiation. I don't believe it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a sugarcoat right there.
Good try, but I'm not falling for the okie doke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Well, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. At least that's been outlined, in this article. As more comes out, we'll definitely bring that back out. But EJ, what else do you have for me on this?
Well, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be an ongoing process. It's going to take 2 or 3 years for this to get figured out. It's not going to happen as fast as people think it is. It's going to stay in Congress. And you know what? They're going to negotiate, and this is not going to happen quickly. I see this same problem going on for the next 2 or 3 years, and they're not going to come to some sort of agreement. And if they do come to an agreement, the NCAA is going to benefit from it. The student athlete is not going to benefit from it. They're going to make tons of money for their institution. The NCAA is going to have a say in that because they get a percentage of those TV right contracts. And anytime they make money and got that emblem that says NCAA, they're making money. And that's my take on that, Aaron. I think this is going to stay up this is not going to get done overnight. Look how long the transfer portal is going on. It's been 2 years. Well, this is a 3, 4, 5 year battle going down the road. So get your money, athletes.
I think this is going to pass. I do. I think there's enough forces behind this that this can, maybe not in this exact format, but I would really urge athletes out there to organize against this and come up with their own measure, because otherwise you're going to get fed what they want to feed you. And it's going to be pro NCAA. It's going to be pro institution, not constitution, institution.
Constitution.
And it's going to be pro corporate. It is. And unless, like I said, they organize and come up with their own sort of legislation, I think this is going to get crammed down their throats. Again, maybe not this, but some version of it, and some of those rights that they've fought for are going to be reined back in. And my answer would be, again, third-party entity that hopefully is not as corruptible and not as influenced as some of the current entities that are controlling what's going on.
Oh, so are you saying that athletes should go out and get some attorneys that are in this field of subject that could help them start a group or a organization that has the ability to preserve their rights as a person out there trying to do right by themselves and others by really free enterprise, as I say it. I'm gonna call free enterprise, Aaron. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Here's a line out of the article that kind of said it all to me, and it really just rang an alarm. The pair of senators included statements praising the legislation from NCAA President Charlie Baker, the Big 12 Conference, the Southeastern Conference, and from presidents of universities to which they were connected.
Connected, keyword.
Okay, that says it all. And the reason why I say that is this. SEC, one of the biggest, highest profile conferences that is dealing with this. You know, and Big 12, same thing, you know, and so again, these guys don't want, and most of the marquee players are coming out of these markets. Let's be honest.
Yes, they are.
Most of your future professional athletes, especially if you're just looking at football, are coming out of these conferences. And a lot of corporate dollars, a lot of institutional dollars there at stake if these athletes that they get from some of these poorer neighborhoods, let's be frank,
or neighborhoods,
decide to write their own tickets with their own NIL deals, some ill-advised, some very advised, cuts into the profit margin and the power of these entities.
Yes.
I don't see the MEAC up there. I don't see the WAC. I don't see, you know, some of these smaller conferences being mentioned. I see two of the biggest, most influential sports conferences in the country. So that tells me it's about dollars. It's not about freedom. It's not about the, you know, what's in the best interest of the athlete. I don't see any athletic organizations being mentioned telling this.
Zero.
So anyway, just an opinion show, folks. But we'd love to hear yours. So pick us up on YouTube. Tell us what you think. You guys probably have some better ideas than I do. And let's throw them around. Let's talk about this again as it, you know, as it evolves. But, you know, this is kind of that. This is our first go around on this topic in terms of its recent developments. Maybe this thing doesn't get any traction. Maybe it does. I don't know. But with the two that are introducing it, not a big fan.
No. It's going to be part 2, part 3, part 4. I'm going to let you know, Aaron. There's going to be more on this, man. I love it. All right, sports fans out there. Thanks for listening to our podcast today. This is Coach EJ, the brand.
And Coach Aaron, the source. Nos vemos. See you later.
Very good.